it's so cool to be here. I love being in environments where I can totally geek out on behaviour, and that there's people even a tiny bit interested, even if it was just for the free drinks. I'm not, you know, I'm done that with 25% of you profiled, done, move on to everyone else now. Thanks for coming. I'm not going to keep you guys very long. It's super warm in here. It's lovely and warm outside. I know where I would rather be, and my wife's got laryngitis, and I don't want to miss a second of that. So we're going to skip through this as quickly as we possibly can. My name's Jez Rose. I used to work in the NHS as a behaviourist in mental health, and that's why I'm here. No, it's not. And then I left the NHS. I went to go and work for the Walt Disney Company. So I worked with Imagineering and taught customer service and leadership, and did some other bits and bobs as well. And now I work with ordinary people, like most of you here. So this session this afternoon really revolves around why we do the things we do and how we can change them. That's my job every single day. So I spent the last 3.5 years, kind of 4 years of my life, researching whether there was a difference between ordinary people and extraordinary people. I wanted to know why was it that some individuals and some organizations just kind of, you know, plod along and do what they do, but other organizations and some individuals kind of achieve like really quite epic things. Are you just born that way? Can we learn it? What's the deal? So that really resulted, so it's 3.5, 4 years of my life doing that for no other reason than just I like stats. I should probably, okay, so let me set something up now, right? This is super relaxed. You ask questions whenever you want. I'll hang around for kind of conflicting stuff later. Please, if you need a weed, please don't ask. Just go and drink and stuff like that. So just to put this into context. So I notice in my garden that there's a little robin that visits the garden, and he only ever lands on a little log over here or a wall on that side of the garden, right? Of the vast estate that he could land in, 3-bedroom semi, he only ever lands on a log here or a wall over there. And I wonder why that is, right? So I start to chart it. I put a piece of paper on the fridge, and every time he lands on the wall, I mark the wall, and every time he lands on the log, and I think, well, over sort of 2 or 3 weeks, I'll end up with a distributive bell curve, and I'll know more about robin behavior, right? So that, for me, is totally normal. I'm in bed on a Sunday, and my wife says, Mrs. Jez, she says, stay there, I'll bring you a cup of tea in bed. And I think, I don't know, I want to be alive and living, so I'm going to get up. So after about 30 seconds, I think, I can't be doing sitting in bed. I'm going to go downstairs. I go downstairs, and I find Mrs. Jez putting grape nuts out on the log, right? So I come in and I say, what are you doing? She said, well, I was just putting some grape nuts out for the robin, to feed the robin. I said, you're biasing the experiment. Now he's always going to go to the log. And she said, for crying out loud, who charts a robin? So my point being, I know what you're thinking, what a catch, lucky Mrs. Jez. Well, so that's what I ended up doing, right? This is my weird ear interest. And you're probably asking, what do you do with that sort of research, Jez? Is it in your best-selling book, the one that's currently in the W.H. Smith bestseller charts? Well, yes, it is, sir, but please, that's enough about that. So listen, this is what this is all about, right? That's me, just in case you wondered. I don't know why that is even there. So this is what today is all about, right? Behavior really fundamentally is super, super simple. When we want to change behavior, it's as simple as ABC, right? People always say to me, is behavior change in psychology really difficult? And it's not really difficult. It's pretty simple. It's not necessarily easy. So you've got ABC, right? So the B is the bit that we're all fascinated with. That's the easy bit. That's the bit that we look at all the time. B stands for behavior, right? So that's the child that draws on the wall, the dog that leaves a little present in your shoe, right? The colleague that turns up late or doesn't deliver on their promises. That's the behavior. We all focus on behavior, right? Most people know that every behavior has a consequence. So largely, very broadly speaking, you punish the things you want to see less of and you reinforce the things you want to see more of. That's generally how we work. You get a big surge of adrenaline when good things happen to us. Now, this is very broadly speaking, all right, but it's very important to understand. And then I promise the sexy stuff happening. I know what you think you're saying, but hang on. You said no sciencey stuff. You said that was the stuff. There's just one more bit. This is it, and then we're done, okay? Promise. So when good stuff happens to us, you get a big surge of adrenaline. And that's the same for all good things. We're there. All right, good. So when good things happen to us, a big surge of adrenaline. The thing with adrenaline is it goes away very quickly on its own. It gets metabolized very quickly. That's why after certain good things that happen to us, some people fall asleep very quickly. There we go. Now, when bad things happen to us, when you get a shock or a trauma or a jolt, your brain leaks the stress hormone cortisol, right? It kind of, not physically, it stays within your body. So you get a big surge of cortisol, of the stress hormone. Make sense so far? Thing with cortisol is it takes a lot longer to go away on its own. So it takes a lot longer to reduce to a normal level, sometimes in human beings up to 72 hours. If you've got a dog, let me give you an example, or children, normally with some sort of behaviour challenge, you'll find that no matter what you try to do to change it and wear them out, by wearing them out you think that they're going to sleep more, but conversely you actually end up spiking that cortisol level. So if you've got one of those crazy dogs like Springer Spaniels or German Shepherds, or colloquially get lumbered into mistakes, so those sorts of dogs, right, and you end up throwing the ball forever to try and wear it out, and then it comes back and it's still like that, like, yeah, come on, more, and you're like, how the hell am I going to wear this thing out? If you just stop throwing the ball, or if you've got children, you stop doing things that are going to peak their adrenaline or their cortisol levels, after 3 days you have an entirely different animal, an entirely different child, because it allows the cortisol level to reduce back to a normal level. Does that make sense? You've all experienced this. You've been cut up on the way to work. It's the bad thing that happens, right? And so then it riles you and annoys you for the whole day. God forbid, somebody smashes your favourite mug. That's it, isn't it? Now everybody knows about that, right? So this is what happens. What does that tell us about our human behaviour? Correct. It tells us that the bad stuff lingers longer, therefore it is our responsibility to accentuate the positive. Because the positive stuff doesn't have as greater emotional and biological impact on us than the bad stuff does. Does that make sense? That's why the bad stuff is such a big thing. That's why you get naysayers and doubters and whingers and those moany people I like to call slinkies. You know those toys, the slinky toys? Not really good for much, but they're a whole lot of fun when you push them down the stairs. Those people that we all know. So, the thing with all of this, the missing link, is the why, all right? And I think this is one of the cornerstones, one of the key reasons why we don't change behaviour very successfully, or why we struggle with it. Remember earlier on I said that the way we're going to change behaviour is positive reinforcement, right? That's the most effective way. Punishment is just, we're really sloppy with it, we're not very good with it. It's the chasing the child around the room with a wooden spoon. Anybody from that generation where their mum used to smack them with a wooden spoon? No, a few of you, right? I am. All right. That's why I'm now here talking to you like that, like a group therapy session. So, or maybe, okay, well, let me give you the example and you can fill it in, right? So, what generally happens is parents say, oh, how bad. No, that's wrong. You must not draw on the wall, or pull your sister's hair, or ride the dog, or whatever. You go, come here, so that I can smack you. And the kid's like, no, I'm not coming that way. And so they go, right, that's it. Into the cupboard to get the wooden spoon and go, right, that's it, come here. And then a chase ensues around the house, if you were in our house, right? Because you're going, oh, no. And they go, come here, because the mother feels they have to make contact in order for you to learn your lesson. And a little sting on the back of the legs. And now apparently, the thing that happened 4 minutes ago, I'm supposed to link as a 4-year-old non-cognitively developed child to the stinging of my legs, right? But actually what happens is, because feedback loops are so quick, and I'm going to play a video very shortly to explain this, you pair your mother chasing you with punishment, or the presence of your mother with punishment, or a wooden spoon with punishment, not the fact that you draw on the wall, right? Does that kind of make sense? I did some research. Like, already you know this is going to be geeky, right? I did some research to find out how people can get things done, right? Why is it that, like, if you have a to-do list, no one's ever got you've always got like millions of stuff on their to-do list, right? And we worked out, I called it a kick-ass to-do list, right? Because the idea is not only is it function as a to-do list, but it actually helps you get the things done that are on there. And I found out that there are lots of different ways that you can check off that you've done something on a to-do list. You can cross it out, tick it, yada, yada, yada. The best way, it gives you an uplift of about 17% of a sense of positivity and well-being, and that you feel really like you've achieved it, bless you, is to put a square next to each of the things, right? So this is my to-do list, there's a square, and then have that square and colour it in. Because it takes a little bit longer to colour it in, so the sense of well-being and achievement is prolonged, right? And you get an 11% uplift when you chart people. They say, no, definitely that one. That one made me feel really good. So I've come up with this to-do list. You can, I'll just give you a link. You can download all this kind of stuff for free, and some other weird research we've been involved in as well. Now, successive approximation is an amazing tool that you can all use. The idea being that you reinforce any behaviour that's slightly in the direction towards what you're trying to achieve. So it's what we call shaping or modelling. So you would shape the behaviour in the direction you want. So say you, sometimes in longer workshops I do this, but we won't do it because I haven't got time. If in my head I wanted you to pick up that bottle of water, and I had somebody here, and I would reinforce you if you were doing something right now, you'd have no idea, right? Because I'm not going to tell you what I want you to do. So you'd be here just kind of guessing. And if you faced that way, I wouldn't reinforce you at all. But if you face this way, you'd get a reinforcement. So you'd figure out, okay, so it's something here. So it's not that way because I've got no feedback. But here I got a chocolate button or a pat on the head or whatever you find reinforcing. Let's not go there. So it's something this way. So then obviously you'd walk and I would reinforce you because I want you to go this way. Does that kind of make sense? And you get more reinforced, and then you don't get reinforced for being over here, but you get more for here, and then you kind of work it out for yourself. That's how easy it is, even when you don't know what the end result is. Does that make sense? So if you know and they know what you're trying to achieve, rewarding them for little milestones that are roughly in the right direction is really important. But don't make sure, and I'm not going to go into this because you'll be like, what the hell? This was meant to be fun. It said funny on the poster. What you shouldn't do is make those reinforcements at a regular schedule, okay? Because if they're regular, like your paycheck happens at the same time every month, right? Then you can switch off and choose when to engage, right? And so what you end up with is towards the end of the month, you get sort of less engagement because you know you're going to get paid anyway. Does that kind of make sense? And then you get a little bit of a spike in engagement at the beginning of the month because the paycheck seems so far away. And so what you want to do is the successive approximation is obviously marked every time they do it in the right way. But if it's what I call absent successive approximation, so unless you are watching the patient all the time, you won't know whether they're doing it in the right direction. Does that kind of make sense? Then you can change this schedule, this reinforcement schedule, so that they're getting reinforced at irregular times to maintain their motivation on that path. Does that make sense? Yes? So I talk a lot to education professionals, and I have an hour presentation where I talk just about the word can't. Because if you tell children that they can't do something, they just stop trying. So it's especially damaging and limiting. But it can be for adults too, right? So there are a number of things that I think are important, and I'll explain why, to do with a concept called neuroplasticity. If you think about the word problems, this is one of my favorite words, right? I've not had a problem since 1992, and I've been drug-free since March, so it's been a good year. No, I'm kidding. If you think about the word problems, when somebody says we've got a problem, everybody starts to feel a little bit more emotive about it, right? It's like, oh, there's a problem. Oh, right, well, then we may as well stop. Okay, everything grinds to a halt because we want to see whether there's a solution to the problem, right? It's very frontal. And when you look at people's emotional responses to the word problem, when you say we've got a problem, everyone's like, oh, all right, what's going to happen as a result of the problem? Let's all stop. Everybody don't do anything till we've got a solution to the problem, right? Now, if instead of the word problem, you use the word challenge or barrier, suddenly that sits differently in your head, doesn't it? Like if you think about the word problem and you kind of point to where that is in your head, and then say, okay, well now say the word challenge, where is that? If you say to your team, right guys, we've got a challenge, your creators are all like, woo, yeah, challenge, what is it? Come on, let's find a solution for it. Yeah, I love it. Or we've got a barrier. Oh, a barrier, right? How can we get round it? Let's think, right? Whereas a problem is, oh, well, we may as well give up, right? There's no point. Here's another one, right? Above my desk, we have the phrase no because written, okay? And underneath my desk, that's been crossed out by everybody that works for me. So there's 7 people that have crossed it out because I employ 6 other people. So everybody crossed it out. It'd be weird if there were 8 crosses through it because I don't employ 7 people. You're following so far? Good. And underneath that is the phrase yes if. So if you imagine of all the times that you've rung a restaurant and said, have you got a table for 7 o'clock? And they say, no, because we're fully booked. What do? You put the phone down, you move on to another restaurant, right? If you said, have you got a table for 7 o'clock? And they said, yes, if you don't mind coming at 1:15. Or yes, if you don't mind having a drink and we'll seat you around about 1:30 because we're very busy tonight. My question to you is this, on a personal level, but also professionally too. How many things in your life have you justified as to why they couldn't happen because of your innate, wonderful ability to be able to do that you have let you pass you by, that you've prevented from happening professionally and personally because of the language that you've used? Now, if instead of responding to things with no because, you change it to yes if, what happens is two things that are really, really... Oh, remind me... Right, another thing as well. Write it down because you've got lots. Right, mince. Okay, we're there. You're going to remember that? He's so confident. He's like, just trust me. Right, mince. Got it. 40%. You might have a new job after this. You could be like my walking file of facts. I'll be like, what's your name? Joe. I'll be like, Joe, make a note of this. And you're like, don't need to make a note of it. It's all here. I got it, brother. All right. What was I saying? Yes, if. So, two things that are really sexy happen, right? Number one is it encourages you to think of ways that it could happen, right? That's really cool, isn't it? Challenges you, starts putting you in a different direction. But secondly, it starts to rewrite your brain. You can rewire your brain based on the language that we use. Now remember, this is being recorded, right? This isn't some kind of like, I've got crystals and caftans in the car. If anybody wants them, it'll change the way you look at life. Just listen to whale music. It's not like, this is like proper science, right? Sorry. This is proper science. In that, something called neuroplasticity is our ability for our brain to form and change differently. So if you were to do a scan of your brain right now, if we were to all use an fMRI scanner and take a photo of what your brain looks like, and you were to apply some of the things I've been talking about, in 3 to 6 months' time, if we did another scan of your brain would look different. It would still look like a brain. You'd be going, oh, look, mine's got ears. Go, oh, look, it's like a little dog. It would still look like a brain, but different areas of it would be being used that weren't being used before. So there are two fantastic things by the language that we use, okay? So think about that, because it's so damaging and limiting, and it also influences directly our ability or our desire to engage with behavior change too. Think about what I said earlier about the little girl that every time her medicine is presented, she cries, right? You ignore the crying, you present the medicine with a desirable consequence. The crying goes away on its own because suddenly we're pairing the thing she previously thought was scary to something that's really good. And think about the same thing when we say medicine, or medicine, however you want to say it, depending on where you are. I spend a lot of time in the US. What does that do to her? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? If it's a bad thing, then we need to be choosing a different word, right? But because we normalize and we habituate, that is our language profile. So we use the language and we use the terms and we use the behaviors that we do every day because we don't have to think about it, right? And that's the damaging bit, is that if we stop thinking about it, we can't think about alternative ways for this to happen. So is it that the inhaler looks different? Is it that we call it something different, et cetera, et cetera? Make sense?